Hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. This is going to be a little stop in to see what headlines would look like if we had a different media. What different stories would be highlighted? Because we know that they'll take a highlight a story that has no, by any journalistic standards, national news credibility, but it fits the narrative. Well, what if our narrative was in charge of the news? We might do things differently. We might highlight other stories, like in San Diego. There is a fire going on. It started last week, and they thought they had it out, but it sparked back up. And then they thought they had it out again, but it sparked back up. And now they're saying this thing's going to last like 2 or maybe even 4 more weeks. Well, what's going on there? It's an electric vehicle battery plant. There's a little storage facility there. Oh, those things don't get put out so easily. Well, this is somewhat relevant to what's going on in the news because it was just last week your president signed some new tariffs into law, some protectionist tariffs for electric vehicles, electric vehicle battery parts, some steel, some aluminum, some components. And all this tried to support the electric vehicle industry in America. Just another one, besides subsidizing it and punishing gas car makers and subsidizing it from all ends, and protectionist tariffs. Still hasn't taken off like they hoped to. You've been told for 15, 20 years, this is the car of the future. And they've been wrong every time they've said it. Well, that explains why they're not too excited about hyping a story like this. Because the whole excuse for all this billions, if not trillions of dollars in spending on renewable energy, for all the excuse is that it's better for the environment. Is it? Let's go to the Fox affiliate in San Diego, Fox 5.
Fire crews continuing to battle a fire at the Gateway Energy Storage Facility in Otay Mesa since last Wednesday.
You have to put water on it to keep the fire confined, but that water damages the batteries, also allowing them to arc, starting another fire. So we're just trying to keep the public safe. We're trying to keep the fire contained to the building.
That chain reaction can happen when a lithium-ion battery creates heat faster than it can dissipate. The rapid increase of temperature then turns to fire. CAL FIRE reports there is now major damage to the building, including the roof. In Otay Mesa, officials continue to monitor the air quality and the water runoff to make sure it's safe for crews to be near. As for how much longer we might expect to see fire mitigation continue at the site,
we're not sure. We're preparing for the worst. We're making plans to be here for a long time, 2 to 4 weeks, and we'll reevaluate then.
And the smoke from that, I'm sure it's not real pleasant. It doesn't smell like this candle that my wife got at Bath and Body Works. It's probably a little more toxic than that as well. By the way, shout out to Palo Santo and Sage is the candle I would recommend. It smells worse than that. And I kind of giggle at this because, saving the environment sure does look bad for the environment. And you also got to remember the chemicals, the lithium ions and stuff that are fueling this disaster. Where do they come from? They come from countries with no ecological or environmental considerations whatsoever, and they're strip mine. Have you seen strip mining? That's where they take a mountain and basically just slowly grind it down to a flat, or they take a nice little deposit and they make a big ditch, just a big wide hole, and then they leave it there. Because look, in these countries where it comes from, whether it comes from like Congo or China or something to that effect, what do you think? They go back and they fill in that hole and they level it out and they plant a bunch of trees on top of it? Nah, they just leave and just ugly scar and otherwise pristine nature in order to get the lithium that's now burning in San Diego for 2, maybe 4 weeks. We don't know. But you're subsidizing this idiocy. Your paycheck is being eaten into, not just with the money that's withheld from it for taxes, but also the inflation that's going to this. We didn't have an extra $1 trillion to spend on the air quotes Inflation Reduction Act, which Biden says was the biggest spending in renewable energy and climate change efforts in history. You're paying for this. You're subsidizing this. On top of that, you're also paying higher prices through the protectionist tariffs that happen, and they keep telling you that this is a good thing to do. Electric vehicles are so much better for the environment. We've got to get rid of these gas vehicles because they're destroying the environment. How are they destroying the environment? Well, when you produce the energy to move you, it creates carbon dioxide. Okay, but what about when I plug in this car into the wall? That energy, does it not produce carbon dioxide? Well, let's not get too specific here, Parker. Just break it down into, you got to allow for a little nuance. No, it's amazing how some stories can make national news if and only if it fits the narrative. But similar stories, this is an ecological disaster. This is something that is relevant to the people you're talking to. The people of the United States would be interested in hearing that stuff like this happens from the things that we're subsidizing. This happens to be related to the new tariffs that were just signed into law last week. If it's so important that the president has to sign executive orders and unilaterally change the tariff laws, and he has to put 100% tariff on electric vehicles from China. I mean, it's so important. We even have to put tariffs on component parts of electric vehicle batteries from other countries in order to protect our industry here. But that industry here has a disaster, and that's not news. I call BS. You can't only report on an industry in a good light, ignore everything it does bad, and not be propaganda. That's what propaganda is. If something is politically important, if and only if it serves your narrative, then you're not a news organization. You're a political activist organization masquerading as news. You're dishonest, you're unethical, and you're a liar. Lying by omission counts, people. Lying by omission, people, you can make an argument that it's not as bad as like actively lying, passively lying. Okay, maybe not. Still lying, still bad, still ugly. And it still stands that your worldview cannot win in the court of public opinion, cannot win the debate that we are all having in the real world if everyone got the real story. That tells me you have a flawed worldview, sir. If you're the guy that has to report on this, not report on this and cover for it in order for your worldview to not be embarrassed, I think we found a flaw with your worldview. 800-288 WBAP, 800-288-9227. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.